Oh, you're here. Good. I was hoping for company. You see, I've got stories, dark ones, chilling ones, the kind that keep you up at night. Mythical creatures, curses, horrors you can't escape. Shall we begin? Don't worry, I won't bite. Much.
Have you ever heard of someone marrying a dead person? And it wasn't even a century ago. It happened in the early 90s in a village called Greystone. And back then, no one dared to say no. There was a shaman in the village, an old woman named Granny Hugh. She was in her 60s, skinny as a twig, but with eyes that shone eerily bright. People feared her. Her family had been shamans for 3 generations, and she had a reputation for being disturbingly accurate. If she said a household was cursed, sure enough, something would happen within 3 days. If she said a pregnant woman was carrying a spirit child, that baby rarely lived past infancy, often sent off by one of her rituals. There was once an outsider who didn't believe her. The baby survived for 6 months, but a strange tumor grew on the back of his head. Granny Hugh said it was the devil. The child died not long after. Since then, no one dared question her authority. Even the village chief, Mr. Zhao, showed her respect. Lynn was the prettiest girl in Greystone. Fair skin, bright eyes, and 2 thick black braids that bounced when she walked. Every boy in the village had snuck a glance at her. But Lynn had a stubborn streak. No matter who came to propose, she refused. Even the village chief's son, Victor Zhao, got turned down flat. "Dad, who does she think she is, acting like I'm not good enough?" Victor fumed, slamming the table. Chief Zhao took a slow drag from his pipe, eyes half closed. "What's the rush? Her dad's a pushover. If we push a little harder, she'll cave." But before they could make a move, Granny Hugh stepped in first. Lynn's father, Old Lynn, was a quiet man. His wife had died young, and he'd raised Lynn by himself, tending 2 small plots of land. One evening, he returned from the fields and suddenly collapsed at the gate, foaming at the mouth, limbs twitching. Lynn panicked, sobbing. Neighbors ran to fetch Granny Hugh. She entered and immediately shouted, "He's been possessed by a hanging ghost!" She burned a yellow talisman and slapped the ashes onto old Lynn's forehead. The ashes stuck to his eyelids and wouldn't fall off. Granny Hugh shook her head solemnly. "This ghost's angry. It wants a substitute. Unless what?" someone asked anxiously. "Unless we perform a ghost marriage with a virgin girl to appease the spirit." Lynn snapped, "Nonsense. He's just exhausted. He needs a doctor." Granny Hugh sneered. "A doctor? Can doctors cure spirit sickness? If he doesn't wake up tonight, you'd better start planning his funeral." The villagers began chiming in. "Lynn, Granny Hugh's never wrong. Didn't the Liu girl marry a ghost a couple year back? Her family's been doing great since." Lynn bit her lip, silent. Then Granny Hugh said slowly, "If you ask me, she should marry that boy from the Zhou family. He's been dead 3 years, needs a bride." The crowd fell silent. That boy was Ryan Zhou, one of the few educated men in the village, handsome and good with machines. 3 years ago, he died suddenly, and his burial happened so fast no one even saw the coffin. Everyone was used to following the village chief and Granny Hugh. No one objected. Late that night, old Lynn still lay unconscious, forehead burning hot. Lynn wiped his face with a damp cloth, tears falling. Then, tap, tap. The window creaked. Victor's face appeared in the gap, grinning darkly. "Lynn, marry me and I'll call a doctor for your dad." Lynn grabbed a pair of scissors and lunged. Victor yelped and ducked out, cursing as he left. Lynn wiped her tears and made up her mind. Marrying a dead man was still better than ending up with a sleazebag like Victor. She'd go through with it, for now, and escape with her father later. By dusk the next day, Granny Hugh barged in with a group of village women. They forced Lynn into a bright red wedding gown and dusted her face with pale makeup. Granny Hugh handed her a wooden plaque inscribed with the spirit of Ryan Joe and tied a red string around her wrist, the other end attached to a coffin. She announced, "This is Ryan's actual coffin. Dug it up just for the ceremony. You'll kneel and pay respects to his family spirit." Then she added, "Remember, tonight you must stay at the Joe family's old house and guard the coffin. Do not touch the string or the coffin before dawn, or your father will die instantly." As they shoved her out the door, Lynn looked back at her father lying on the bed. For a second she thought she saw his eyelid twitch, like he was trying to wake up. These ghost marriages always happened at night. There were drums and music, just like a regular wedding, except no food, no fire. The bride was delivered to the groom's home, and if she made it through the night, the ceremony was considered a success. But in the past 2 or 3 decades, less than half the ghost brides survived the night. Most disappeared in the morning hall. Granny Hugh claimed they were taken by the gods, a sacrifice to ensure their family's safety. When Lynn arrived at the Joe house, it was as dusty and abandoned as she'd expected, cobwebs hanging from the rafters, flickering candles on the altar. The black lacquer coffin sat squarely in the middle of the room. Strangely, it looked clean, not like it had just been dug up. Whatever. One night, she told herself, just get through one night. She sat on a mat, leaning against the wall. Her eyelids grew heavy, but just after midnight she heard it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. It was coming from inside the coffin. Lynn's hair stood on end. Her mind screamed, what if I'm next? The sound didn't stop. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Lynn stared hard at the black coffin, her mind flashing back to Granny Hugh's warning. Don't touch anything before dawn. Don't go near the coffin or your father dies. But what if there really was something inside? What if... She pinched her own arm hard and muttered, "Come on, Lynn. You're not a coward. You've never been afraid before." Taking a deep breath, she grabbed a candle from the altar and slowly crept toward the coffin. Up close, she saw it. The coffin lid wasn't nailed shut. Her heart pounded like a drum. She sucked in a breath and pushed hard. Clunk. The lid slid halfway open, and a pale face stared back at her. "Ah!" Lynn stumbled backward, nearly falling. But a moment later, she froze. She knew that face. It was Ryan Joe, the Joe family's son. They'd grown up in the same village. "Shh, don't scream." Ryan suddenly sat up, clamping a hand over her mouth. In the flickering candlelight, Lynn saw clearly. It was a real living person. He looked like a ghost from malnutrition, sunken cheeks, chapped lips, but he was very much alive. You're Ryan?" Lynn stammered. "But you're supposed to be dead," Ryan replied. "It's a long story. 3 years ago, I caught Granny Hugh and Chief Zhao putting a girl in a coffin." He didn't finish. Footsteps sounded outside the door. Ryan's face changed instantly. "Quick! Put the lid back. Don't make a sound." Lynn scrambled to close the coffin lid and blew out the candle just as the door creaked open. Granny Hugh walked in, holding an oil lamp, with Victor Zhao right behind her. "Lynn, staying up all night must be rough, huh?" Victor grinned, showing yellowed teeth. "Thought I'd keep you company." Granny Hugh glanced around the room and at the coffin, then nodded. "Don't be too long, Victor. We've got work to do." She turned and left. Victor grabbed Lynn's wrist. "Come on, you married a dead guy. Why waste your youth? I can give you a real man." She struggled, but he held on tight. Thinking fast, Lynn blurted, "Wait!" "Listen, there's a sound inside the coffin." Victor paused and turned toward the coffin. At that exact moment, bang! The coffin lid flew open and Ryan swung a heavy iron chain straight at Victor's head. The blow landed with a sickening thud. Victor collapsed without a word. "Run," Ryan snapped, breaking the red cord binding Lynn's wrist. He pulled her outside. Lynn was in a daze. Everything was upside down. Who was alive? Who was dead? As they burst out of the courtyard, they heard Granny Hugh's high-pitched screech in the distance. "The ghost bride has escaped. After them." Torches lit up the darkness, surrounding them from all sides. Ryan yanked Lynn toward a cornfield. "Follow me. I know a way off the mountain," he whispered. "But we'll have to pass through the burial grounds." Lynn panted, trying to keep up. "Ryan, those girls they stuffed in coffins. Where did they go?" Ryan's voice was colder than the wind. "They were sold to traffickers outside the mountains." Lynn's stomach twisted. She had read about such things in books, but in her small world, she had believed Granny Hugh's stories and rituals were real. She had never imagined the truth could be so cruel. Lynn's mind was a mess. Who could she trust now? And what about her father still lying at home? The sharp corn leaves scraped her face as she stumbled through the field behind Ryan. Torches flickered in the distance. Granny Hugh's shrill voice and barking dogs echoed like the cries of ghosts chasing them through the night. "There, up ahead," Ryan gasped. "The burial grounds." Under the moonlight, crooked tombstones jutted from the earth like jagged teeth. A few broken coffins were half buried, their gaping holes black as pitch. Lynn's knees buckled. "Do we really have to go through there?" Ryan gripped her hand tighter. "It's the only way out, and besides..." He hesitated. "The proof is buried here." They ducked behind a fresh grave as Chief Zhao's voice boomed behind them. "Split up! Dead or alive, I want them found." The dirt was still damp. Beside the mound lay a few pieces of clothing, a pink blouse with a tiny yellow flower embroidered on the sleeve. Lynn clapped a hand over her mouth. Wasn't that worn by the Lee family's daughter who vanished last month?" Ryan's tone was icy. "You think Granny Hugh really had powers? She drugged those girls, stuffed them in coffins, smuggled them out of the village, and told everyone they'd been taken by the gods." Just then, a dull thud echoed nearby. A coffin nearby was shaking. Lynn's scalp tingled as she watched Ryan dash toward it. He pried open the lid. Inside was a woman, tied up and barely conscious, her mouth sealed with tape. It was Widow Bai from the next village, the one Granny Hugh had accused of being cursed, saying she'd doomed her husband to death. Turned out, she wasn't cursed. She'd been hidden away all along. "They didn't have time to move her yet," Ryan muttered, slicing the ropes. "Help me lift her." Suddenly, a shadow lunged at them. "You filthy brat!" Granny Hugh shrieked, swinging a hatchet. The blade grazed Ryan's ear and embedded itself in the coffin lid. Ryan shoved her hard. She stumbled backward, landing in a pile of graves. The oil lamp she'd been holding smashed to the ground. Flames roared to life. The fire caught her trousers and spread fast. "Help! Help me!" Granny Hugh screamed, rolling on the ground as the flames devoured her. The fire spread to nearby paper offerings, turning the burial mound into a blazing inferno. She flailed, howling, until her voice was swallowed by the fire. By the time Chief Zhao and his men arrived, Ryan was already holding up the pink blouse. "Look, these are the girls who were taken by the gods." In the firelight, the villagers finally saw clearly 3 or 4 unopened coffins scattered across the graveyard. Inside each one was a living girl, drugged and unconscious. The air reeked of chemicals, Chaos erupted. Fathers and mothers who had lost daughters rushed forward sobbing. Chief Zhao panicked and tried to run, but Ryan grabbed a rock and struck him square on the head. Zhao collapsed. At dawn, police cars rolled into the village. Chief Zhao and his accomplices were taken away. Granny Hu had burned to death. Victor was badly injured and taken to the hospital. Later, Lin asked Ryan how he had survived. Why had he hidden in a coffin? Ryan said they'd caught him 3 years ago, beat him, but didn't kill him. For some reason, they kept him alive, probably because he was strong and useful. They forced him to carry coffins and load girls. Then recently, they sold him to an organ trafficking gang. Sensing his time was running out, he took a chance when he heard about Lin's ghost wedding, hid in the coffin, waiting for the right moment to escape. A month later, Lin was in the county hospital, carefully feeding porridge to her father. Old Lin's so-called spirit sickness had long since vanished. It turned out to be nothing more than a slow poison, slipped into his food by Granny Hu. Lin, her father said suddenly, his voice still a bit raspy, that Ryan boy, he's a good one. Lin's face turned red. She looked toward the doorway and saw Ryan standing there, holding 2 bags of peach cookies. Sunlight streamed through the window behind him, casting a long shadow on the hospital floor. Lin thought to herself, maybe that ghost marriage wasn't such a curse after all. In the end, she really did become someone's bride, not to a ghost, but to a man who brought her back to life.